How about you?
I'm doing well. Welcome, everybody. For those of you new to our athlete briefings, I'm Coach Lorri Lown, and I'm one of the bike fitters and cycling coaches with Team Wilpers. I've been working on Team Wilpers for the last 4+ years, and I'm joined today by Will Jolly. Will is one of our group leads on our current challenge, and so he's joining me today to discuss all things cycling.
Yeah.
So, Will, tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your story?
Sure. Let's see. So I live in Southern California, smallish town called Laverne. We're on kind of the eastern edge of LA County. Definitely a great location because we're so close to everything. You're an hour from the beach, the mountains, the desert, kind of choose your own adventure, sometimes all of them in the same day.
Isn't that
So a
crazy?
great place to be. Yeah, it's a lucky place to be for sure. So yeah, I live here with my wife and our 18-month-old as of today son, which is exciting. So definitely he hit toddlerhood hard. So he's been an adventure to say the least.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of the personal side. Professionally, I was a teacher and worked in education for a long time. Was a middle school teacher most recently.
Yeah.
And then I left that to do a career change, and now I've moved into mental health. And so I am an associate marriage and family therapist. And so a lot of kind of my thought process comes from, the teaching, the education, the therapy, mental health, wellness in a holistic sense, all those perspectives.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then in terms of cycling, I've been biking on and off. I have a road bike that I've been working with since about 2010, kind of in fits and starts as it fit into my life. And then, like many of us have talked about before, since the pandemic hit, Peloton was a great way to maintain
Hmm.
fitness and stay engaged on a platform like that. Fell in love with it, immediately found Power Zone and was like, yep, this is my niche. I love data. I love the personal aspect of it. So that was where I
Yeah.
went. And yeah, then I found the Team Wilpers challenges about a year ago. And I was like, this is great. It's a personal training plan, but it's still
Yeah.
personalized to me because it's Power Zone. So it was really nice to have a trajectory and a plan already ready to go. I just had to add them to the stack and hop on and do my ride. And I had a plan. So it took the guesswork out of it, which was really cool. And I've enjoyed that. And then really excited just to have this new dimension to the challenges this time with the groups and seeing the engagement with the community. It's really cool.
Yeah. I agree. Um, we were talking. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Let's see who's here. So we've got Maggie and Raquel and Valerie and Kristen and Barbara. So good morning, everybody. All the ladies came to join us. I love that. And Amy, live from New York. It's Amy Murphy. You were
Hey,
out at Amy on Facebook. Somebody posted a photo of you with Debbie and Linda, I think. Was it Debbie? Yeah. So hopefully you had a good class with Christian Vandevelde this morning. I'm very jealous. When I learned Amy was going to New York, she was very stealth about it. But
that is
yeah,
awesome.
I know. Um, anyways, where were we going with this? Oh, groups. So, for those of you who are new to the challenge or haven't checked in recently, we added the dimension of training groups this time as kind of an experiment to build some community. And hello, Lending Hearts. I'm trying to think who that is. And Donna. Hey, everybody. Um, and so we have 4 groups that are established, and most of our folks did choose to be with a group. And we've got 4 group chats going on as well. Will is one of our 4 group leaders for this challenge, and he's jumped right in. He sent me, we're going to talk about this in a minute. He sent me this um, what was it? Not PubMed, but this study about longevity and exercise. And I was like, oh my God, I have to read a scholarly article. Okay, I can do that. So it's been a long time since I've had to study that kind of thing. I want to give a couple of shout outs. Actually, some of you I think are here. Um, Julie, Julie Sinat, um, thank you very much for catching my mistake on tomorrow's ride. The warm up ride should be a cool down ride. And I have a friend who's a writer who sends out a weekly newsletter, and the tagline on her newsletter says, I do my best editing after I hit send. And I think of that every time I launch these challenges. So thank you for catching that. For anyone who didn't catch it and who hasn't done tomorrow's ride yet, just pick a 5-minute cool down ride. So yeah, we start to run out of them. And thank you, Peloton, because they group them all together, cool down and warm up. So sorry I missed that, but Julie, thank you for picking up on it. And Meg McHenry, I just wanted to congratulate you. I was reading through all the daily graphs and notes, and you wrote a note about doing some heavy run training, and you took your ride down a notch, and I think that's awesome. I would encourage all of you to listen to your body when you are executing your training, and if you have a day when you need to go a little easier, that's a-okay. Easy is good. We don't always have to go hard. So what else? Oh yeah, Jamie Kennedy. Jamie posted a graph and I thought this was great. So she started Power Zone training last February, and she did a ride this week that she had done at that point, one of Matt's 60-minute Power Zone endurance rides, and she gained 200 in her output, which is huge. So
It's
I
great.
know, right? I know. And what else? Oh yeah, and Mindy, she ran her first marathon. She probably still can't walk downstairs. Isn't it funny? If anybody's ever run a marathon and you do the like sideways walking down the stairs for a while because everything's so inflamed. But congratulations, Mindy. You'll have to let us know if you have another one. Um, oh yeah, and I just wrote down this note because we were talking about this, but Will kind of talked about this. So tell
Yeah,
us a little
yeah.
more about the group chats.
I've been loving watching the group chat and seeing the engagement on there. I mean, we obviously have the main Team Wilpers Facebook page, and people are posting their graphs and commenting, and so it's great to see the support that people are throwing out there. But then even within the group chats that we've now created, these four that we have going, it's really nice to see the conversations that people are putting up in there. You know, throwing out a question or saying like, you know, for example, hey, I struggle with cardio. It wasn't the thing that I love the most, and people jumping in and offering, you know, hey, here's how I approach a new challenge, or you know, I just kind of smile and nod and get through it, or you know, I
Yeah,
decided to make it into a dance party with my kids, you know,
right.
whatever the case may be. Or there's been a great conversation in our group about yoga and how they incorporate different kinds of yoga and what it means for them and how that incorporates into their lives as well. How they focus on doing strength training. So
Hmm.
it's just really nice to be able to see everybody really diving into the conversations on there. And as you know, one of the group leads, to be able to be like, hey, I don't have to be part of this conversation. I don't know a ton about yoga. So I'm going to step back and let them talk
Right.
about this. It's been awesome to see the engagement there again.
Yeah. In all of our Team Wilpers Facebook groups, you know, the running group was the first because that was really how the coaching company had evolved. But I remember when we started the bike fit page and also on the cycling page, and one of the pieces of advice I got from John Ferry, who is our head run coach, was folks will engage. They'll answer questions. It is when you build a beautiful community like this, it kind of runs itself. And that was great because, you know, I've had a busy week. I let the leads do their leading and I'll pop in and read things and answer things occasionally. But yeah, it's great. And so I really enjoy that part as well. Who else is here? So we've got Lending Hearts and Donna and Nick. Hi, Nick. Willpower, Team Willpower. Yes, I get that typo, by the way, a lot when I type Wilpers, but sometimes I feel like Matt is giving me willpower, which is great. So, yeah. Anyways, we're going to jump in and we're going to do a little bit of chatting, and then we have some questions from some of the groups, and we'll look at next week's schedule. But Will had picked up on one of Matt's rides. He was discussing a study about longevity and exercise. And as I was reading it this morning, because morning is the only time I have brain power to read things like this, it reminded me years ago, I was working with a functional medicine doctor. And this man, he has been like, he's Tom Ritchie's personal doctor, and he was on one of like The Amazing Race or something. I mean, this guy's a badass, and he and his wife, they're close to 80 now, I think, and they still race bikes. They're
That's
crazy.
awesome.
Yeah, and he's still he might not quite be close to 80, close to 70. But anyways, he had said something to me, and he said, "Your lifestyle has overcome your genetics. No one in my family lives long." It's just what it is. You know, we grew up in the Northeast. We didn't get a lot of sunshine. Everybody drank, everybody smoked, and I'm going to outlive everyone in my family. I'm very close to it already. And it made me think, okay, what have I done? Well, I moved to California and I get sunshine and good food and exercise. Exercise, I think, is the fountain of youth. And
Yeah.
so tell us about this study, Will.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, so I've been thinking about this a lot because of family stuff going on. So my dad recently passed away, and
Mm,
you know, looking at the metrics of all of the men in my life, I am officially at the halfway point of my life if I
jeez.
meet their expectancy, and I'm like, I'm not that old. So
Right.
um, I did this ride with Matt. For any of you who want to do this and get the more in-depth piece directly from Matt, because I'm just kind of sharing this forward, so all the credit belongs to him for really pulling this into the Peloton sphere. Um, This was a 2012 study that he talked about on his 90-minute endurance ride from August 10th of this year. So just a couple months back. And in the study, they looked at a cohort of 650,000, just over
Wow.
that number of participants. So very robust in terms of participant pool. And really, the top line takeaway info is a lot of the stuff that we talk about a lot in the group that we see shared in all the Peloton spheres. The coaches talk about this stuff. Fitness World talks about this. Really looking at the idea that about 75 minutes a week that they found of a brisk, moderate physical activity, they focused on brisk walking, could actually lead to a gain of about 1.8 years of life expectancy. And this is for people after the age of 40. So they're seeing
So
the
that means
extension.
more walking shoes.
Yeah, more walking shoes, jumping in and getting good insoles, right? Really just a corporate plug.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
they looked at this and they kind of went through the data and they mapped it out and they started to see that really around 150 minutes of good physical activity is the sweet spot. And that's why a lot of the fitness companies, right? For example, like I wear a Fitbit and it says, hey, you need to hit your minimum 150 minutes. I think they call it active zone minutes, right? So that's where that number comes from for a lot of these companies. But basically between there and 300 minutes of brisk, moderate physical activity, something that's going to be for us thinking about this in terms of power zones, really in that kind of zone 2-ish region, which is that kind of awesome connection to what we're doing in our training as well. And then Matt talked about this. When you break down the math, you're really looking at this awesome gain of for every minute of endurance riding you do, you're getting between 5 and 7 minutes of life expectancy added on to the end of your life, which is pretty amazing. And he made the connection, of course, being a former finance guy to, if I could offer you a 5 to 700% return on your investment, you'd be jumping in and doing it. So, and that's, I think, the cool connection here is obviously to our training that power zone endurance rides, the basis of what we talk about, all the coaches on the platform talk about this being your foundation. It fits this category perfectly. So you're throwing in a couple of nice endurance rides throughout the week and you're meeting this basic expectation that's going to help you live longer and be healthier. And then, of course, if you're throwing in more vigorous activity, you need a little bit less of that time and you still get those same benefits. But then over time, Matt talked about this too. You can't go forever, right?
Right.
I can't work out all day, every day doing this and expect to live to infinity, even though that would be amazing.
Tell Peter Attia that he thinks he's going to live to infinity, right?
There's some folks who are trying to figure out how to game the system and do that. But yeah, there is this idea of diminishing returns, right? Of diminishing benefits. So essentially the benefits don't keep adding on. After a while, you kind of hit this plateau. So that's where we get that 150 to 300 minutes time frame. And it's really cool because that provides us, I think, an opportunity to define what our fitness looks like. If we take on that, more is not always better. Fitness is not something that we can just keep stacking on over and over and over, knowing that we might risk overtraining, injury, things like that. It provides us an opportunity to define fitness. So I don't know, Lorri, what do you think about defining fitness and how people can put their own labels on that?
They can. Well, a couple of things that I did pick up on in this study. One is when we look at activity, this is intentional activity. This is not our normal everyday living activity. So we have to add on to what we already do. And some people do physical jobs or have walking or that kind of activity within. So the other thing that I thought was interesting in this study was the gains were there regardless of BMI. So they correlated fitness and body weight, basically, right? What is my BMI? And we know BMI is a weird metric, but it's there. So we can't ignore it. But a lot of times I'll work with folks and they're like, oh, I have to lose weight before I can start going to the gym or that kind of, or I can't be an athlete because I weigh X. And it's like, no, you're going to gain in your health and your fitness and your life by doing activity. That's the bottom line. It doesn't matter what you weigh. And then they also looked at certain demographics. So I think one of them was Black women in particular had a greater gain than the rest of the world. So keep exercising. You're going to live forever. The other interesting thing I just wanted to share is in my inbox today, I'm a big fan of Kelly and Juliet Starrett. They are the Ready State. They've written a couple of books and they have a new book. We'll drop these links, by the way, on longevity. It is, now I can't think of the name of it, but anyways, they were talking about in this newsletter how young people, there was a study that was done that was published in Men's Health, how young people are aging metabolically
Mm.
faster than our generation. So people in their teens and their 20s, and at the cellular level, because of our toxins in our environment and the stressful lifestyle that we lead and the things that are going on in the world today. So those were all the things I was thinking about this morning. Um, yeah, and now I'm looking at that and not looking at the Built to Move is the name of the book, by the way. So their first book, which a lot of people have heard of, is called Move Like a Supple Leopard. And the
Mhm.
concept there is if I do more of the things like animals do, that I'll be healthier, right? So if I crawl and roll and jump and sit on the floor, that kind of thing. So Built to Move has 10 or 12 vital signs of longevity, one being a deep squat. So if you can do a deep squat for 90 seconds, I think we all believe you can live forever. So, anyways, yes, we'll drop the links. We'll drop the links to the study and also to the books. But yeah, I think one of the hard things about fitness is we have to look at what am I doing for general life and fitness. Like I had a physician yesterday who I met for the first time, and she said, "But you're super fit," and I'm like, "But I'm not cycling fit right now." She's like, "But what?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. This is my job. I have to be cycling fit because I've taken a little break and a couple things I'm dealing with." So there's a difference. We can be fit and healthy, and then on the extreme, I mean, you look at guys like the racers in the Tour de France. They're not healthy. They're
Yeah.
very well suited to cycling, but their body weight is super low. We're starting to look at stuff like that too. Like, do we need to do this? Do we need to be so light and unhealthy? And yeah, so we have to decide what's good for my health, what's good for my sport. Which in the Peloton community, most people are here for life, I think, which is good. Not everyone, but yeah, I just rambled a whole bunch. I've had 2 cups of coffee already this morning. It's been a so I'm doing lots of rambling, but yeah, what were your other questions, Will? Or what were your other thoughts on this?
Well,
Or does
so for
anyone
me,
on board have any questions?
yeah, happy to see if anybody has questions too. For me, what I realized, when I was thinking about how I was defining fitness, so the big thing that's been motivating me recently is I had been training to do the AIDS life cycle next year. Unfortunately, due to family events and all that kind of stuff, I missed the registration window, which I'm really
I
sad about.
know.
So, if anybody out there knows somebody who knows somebody, if you know a guy who wants to get in, but even though I wasn't able to sign up for it, I've still been following that training plan because I wanted to do a simulation ride at the end of the year. And I had been so focused on, okay, endurance rides are going to be great because they give me on the platform a long format of class, 90 to
Mhm.
120 minutes. It's just nice to be able to get in and have that ride. And so I had been focusing on not only hitting my distances based on kind of my average mileage for that time frame, but on following the class plans. And I had been really rigid about have to follow the class plan. The coach is
Right.
telling me this. And now they've got that little box around your zone that moves around, and I'm like, I have to be in the box, right?
No, you have to be at the
Well,
top of the box. I'm sorry,
I
right?
do that. I admittedly, I'm usually at the
Everybody raise
top
their
of the
hand.
zones.
Right.
um, and so I did a couple of rides, and I realized I'm going to drop into my zone 2 and do the entire interval section of the class all in zone 2, and I'll do it as a kind of cadence bouncing around and see how that works for me. Then, because I love data, I have all of my workouts downloaded and I do comparison on my spreadsheet and all that kind of stuff. And I compared the same ride when I did the zone 2 and zone 3 to only zone 2. And what I found out was for one of the rides, for example, I was able to hit 95% of the distance. So, not a huge change in that
Right.
same amount of time, but I did it more efficiently because I only used 88% of the wattage to get that 95% of the distance.
That's an important
And
point.
so I was more efficient in that zone, even though, yes, I did go a little bit less mileage. So I might have had to tack on maybe 5 or 10 minutes, but I still would have had that better efficiency. The other thing was thinking about subjective measures. How did I feel? I recovered faster from the ride. I didn't feel as
Hmm.
tired after the ride. I felt happier after the ride when I got off. I was like, hey, I did that and I'm feeling
Yeah.
good. So for me, it was I maybe need to redefine what I was looking at in terms of fitness as it doesn't have to be that I hit every single section of the class plan. It can just be that I'm finishing the class and I'm doing it in a way that's comfortable for me for what I'm looking at right now for those longer distances.
Yeah. Efficiency is everything. And we look at when we look at power training, people think more watts is better. And the reality is more watts isn't. You know, even in bike fit, people are like, "Oh, I want to create more watts." And it's like, "No, you want to go faster for less watts. We want you to ride with less watts." That's the point. And so power production is a big one. And you hit on the other key points of not creating fatigue. When we create too much accumulated fatigue, then we can't train the next day or the next day, or we don't get as good training the next day. And so being able to be disciplined. And I was listening, so Trainer Road also has a podcast I listen to called Ask the Coach. And they were talking about kind of that old school feeling of if you didn't destroy yourself in a workout, you didn't do it. I was like, yeah, we don't believe that anymore. So it's not about destroying yourself. It's not about how many buckets of sweat you have to clean up off the floor. It's not about any of those things. It's feeling good on your rides. Our training should be doable. I should be, whether it is a high intensity training or an endurance training. So, yeah. And I think that's key. And I think that is, like Maggie said, less fatigued after the ride. That's how we are able
Absolutely.
to continue day after day. Yeah. When we just go hard all the time, we get pretty good at going, not even hard, you're kind of going middle of the road, but you create a lot of accumulated fatigue. So that's what it's all about, accumulated fatigue, controlling your TSS, controlling your CTL, not letting things go too hard. So, yeah.
And it's great to think about all those different measures. Like you mentioned, the TSS is one that I hadn't thought of before. And now I'm like, this is how I'm measuring my training load, and looking
Yeah.
at that is important for me now.
Yeah. So for those of you who are like, what are they talking about? TSS, training stress score, which is a score given to every workout based on your output and your duration. And so, for example, an easy-ish ride should be about 50, 55 TSS an hour. A more intense ride might be a little more than that. It might be in the 60s or 70s. So you'll notice, by the way, if you look at the endurance rides on Peloton, most of them are not truly endurance rides. They're a little more intense than what we would do outside. But that's okay. And Kristen, yes, you should share with us what you're reading, because we do have to limit the amount of, we talk about matches. I'm burning the matches. And I have a set number in my matchbook, and maybe not a good analogy anymore. People don't have matchbooks anymore, but, I can burn them any way I want. And I can look at that in the context of one workout. I can look at it in the context of a week or a training cycle. Those are all ways. So I have to be stingy with my high intensity, as you said. Um,
Yeah.
Creating a balanced plan. Well, so we'll talk about strength in a minute, but hopefully we've created for you a balanced plan. That's the key for now. When you start combining things, it gets a little more complex. And we have talked about putting together some plans that include both running and cycling, which I know a lot of folks would be interested in doing, especially on the runner side. How do I incorporate the cycling into what I do? We have not done that yet, but it should be coming down the line in the next year or so. Yeah, it's the challenge for us, I think, is we create a plan for you that is balanced, and then everybody adds in a million other things, because that's the Peloton way. So you have to pay attention, pick out what are your key workouts. That's I think the important aspect there is, what are the most important workouts of my week? Those are the ones that I want to make sure I feel good for. Anything else I add in can be endurance. So,
Yeah.
yeah. What else? Yeah, that's about it. And actually, we're looking at some questions. Kristen's was first. So thank you, Kristen. It says, you've also signed up for the Holiday Cycling Strength Challenge. Should I be doing that instead of the cross training? I would say if you have time, do it in addition to the strength, the additional classes that I included on Wednesdays and Sundays. I wouldn't call that a strength program so much as doing some mobility work, basically, and just trying to mix it up and get a little extra cardio, which I know everybody loves. We're dancing in our living rooms, and that's good. So, but yeah, so that's my answer there would be, if you can do both of them, do them. If not, I would say give the strength the focus and add in the other things when you can. So, what else, Raquel? Can you substitute the 120-minute Matt Wilpers ride? Of course you can. I keep thinking of this as, and I actually wrote this in my notes, the global Power Zone endurance ride with Matt, which I was sworn to secrecy, but I think it's all over the internet already. Thank you to Pillow Buddy and everyone else. We were talking about it in yesterday's coaching meeting. But yes, this will be a first of its kind class with Matt teaching in New York and Hannah teaching in London. And then it also looks like a whole bunch of Peloton instructors are going to participate as well. I wrote a cast of thousands, but I think there's like 6 or 9 instructors that are somehow involved. And I'm really sad because I have to teach a clinic tomorrow morning. I mean, I'm excited to teach a clinic tomorrow morning outside on the bike, but I'm going to miss this class live. So yeah, anyways, yes, you can always substitute rides. And when we're substituting, and some of you want shorter rides, right? So substitute like rides for like rides. You're doing an endurance ride, you can go longer. You're doing an endurance ride, you can go shorter. You're doing a Power Zone class, you can go longer or shorter, whatever you need to do. And I'm always happy to make some suggestions for you. Vaso, on our cycle days off, I'm doing a mix of running and walking. Question for tomorrow. Is it better to incorporate the Wilpers 5K training in our off days, or is it better if I sign up for the Holiday Run Challenge? That's a running question. I didn't even read it. I copied it. Now I'm looking at it. That's a really good question because I don't know the how the programming is built. So Vaso, I would say ping John Ferry or the running page, Team Wilpers Running, and see what folks think. Because I don't know what the content of that program is. So sorry for a non-answer, but it's better than crickets. Valerie, strength and when to schedule it. Days off from rides, before the ride, after the ride. So it kind of depends. I find if you are doing things in your strength program that are going to create a lot of fatigue that may affect your form on the bike or running, then I would say do the bike and the running first on those days and do your strength second. If you're pretty well adapted to strength and so you find you're not getting too much fatigue or you have a good solid program, then you could do your strength work first. And that creates a little more adaptation there. But you have to be careful. I think in cycling, it's usually okay. I do find in running, for those of you who also run, your fatigue from lifting can affect your ability to have good stride, good gait when you're running. So we want to be careful there so you don't get injured. Yeah. And then should you do those on your on days or your off days? I think everybody's a little different in that respect. I'm okay doing double workouts. And like I said, I have to be careful of when I do my strength. Some people like to do it on the off days. But remember, when you're doing strength, it's not rest. So if you're trying to plan things on your rest days, rest is rest. Rest is best. And figure out what works for you in your body and your fatigue level. So, oh, hi, Vaso. You have another name. Yeah, yes, please. Ask the running page. I'd love to give you an answer, but I don't have it. I could make something up, but we know how valuable that would be. So, what else do we have? Next week's training.
Yeah.
More of the same, a little more build. And then we have a surprise in week 4, which is great. But next week is week 3. So same pattern we've been in. Monday will be our rest day. We're doing endurance on Tuesday. This week we've got Dennis. Wednesday, cardio and core. Didn't get any videos. We're going to throw that challenge down again. I want to see you guys dancing with Rebecca Kennedy. And if you hate the low impact, do the dance, do the hit, do whatever you want, but do something on your feet. Go for a walk. Do a short jog if you're into running. That's the idea of Wednesdays is let's get on our feet and off the bike. It's good for us in general. We're with Sam. Man, a lot of Sam fans. I'm trying to remember if it was in one of the chats or if it was on one of the days, but everybody was like, Sam is the best. Sam is great. Good. You got more Sam here. So we got a 45-minute Power Zone class. Friday, we'll have a rest day again. Saturday, we've got a 75-minute Power Zone endurance ride with Matt. This is next week, remember, not this week. And then mobility and core on Sunday. So nice pattern to our week. And then we switch things up in week 4 a little bit. And like I said, tomorrow is the global 120 Power Zone endurance ride. And join in if you want. Remember our hashtag Team Wilpers Cycling. Is it a hashtag or a tag? I don't know.
Hashtag? Yeah, hashtag.
Okay. My mother would say pound. Pound.
Old school, right?
I know. Anyways, Team Wilpers Cycling. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention, you know those pretty graphics everybody's been seeing floating around? Will made those all on his own. We didn't even ask. He came to our first group meeting and he said, "Look what I made." They're pretty cool. I wish we could use them in the chat. We learned a limitation of Facebook is that in a
Yes, yes.
group chat that's based in a group, you can't put custom icons, which is a bummer because we have these great icons. But feel free to use them. They're in your chats.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. What else do we have? This was fast. See, I
Yeah, it
talked.
was a quick one. Even with all of the data and scholarly stuff, right?
Oh no! Oh my god, it made my head hurt. I had to read through twice. And I was like going through and I was like, okay, TLDR, TLDR. What's
Yep,
the bottom
yep,
line? The bottom line is exercise. It's going to help you live longer. It's going to be great for
absolutely.
your mental health, your physical health. The other bottom line is more is not necessarily better. So if we are doing more, it should be intentional with a goal in mind. But you know that good old recommendation from your doc: 30 minutes, 5 times a week. Doesn't hurt you to do something easy a couple other days a week too. So yeah, it was good. Um, thank you, Will. Do you
Yeah,
have anything
absolutely.
else to add or any other questions from anybody?
None other questions that popped up for me. Yeah, I mean, just in terms of, I like that idea of redefining our fitness and knowing that, our definition can change. It can be different from other
Hmm.
people's. And that's also the beauty of Power Zone and why it fits us all so well is, we're training against ourselves in our own zones. The leaderboard is just there to throw out high fives, not to compete.
Yeah,
So it's nice that we have that opportunity, is the way that I've been trying to reframe that for myself. It's not a
yeah,
limitation, it's an opportunity. We get to make our own choices.
yeah. That's good. On that note, I'm gonna press the button and say
Sounds
goodbye.
good.
Have
All
a great
right.
weekend, everybody. Enjoy the
Take
ride
care, everyone.
tomorrow. Thank you, Will.
You're welcome. Bye bye.